Hello, this is Keith All, and in today's tutorial with CSS and HTML, you're going to learn how you could create 3D text and add to that a hover effect. So basically what you see on the left-hand screen is 3D text. It has a shadow behind it, a black shadow. Now when I hover over it, it has that effect. Still a 3D effect, but when you hover over it, it creates a different shadow. It just moves it up instead of like right now. It's the shadow's being moved down and to the right. When you hover over it, it's being moved over to the right. So let's see how this is done. So my index.html file. So whenever you call this up in a browser, it renders this code here, and there's a link tag in the head tag that references a style.css file. So basically it reads in that CSS file and it does its magic, so to speak. So anyways, in the body tag of this index file, I just have a div tag, one div, and it's got some text there. As you can see, this corresponds to what's being printed, rendered basically on the screen. And I assign this div with a class of 3D. So now when we go over to the style.css file, we have this class here, and it's referenced by a dot prior to that. A class is referenced with a dot in front of it. So in other words, what's within these curly brackets here, that class is gonna format this text right here. So basically, let's go up to the top here. Basically, the body, the whole body of within here is going to be styled with a margin of 0, padding of 0, height, it's setting a height of 100 viewport widths, and the background color, which is this color here, it's with a hex value of this. So now let's go over to the 3D class. So basically, as you can see, the color attribute basically is set to dark gray, and that's what you see here. It's a dark gray. The white space means basically if I didn't have this in here, the text would wrap around basically to fit the div, the size of this div right here. So since I have no wrap, it's just going to expand it so it fits on one line. The top to 50% means that it's going to start from the top and then go down 50% of the height. And then the left means it's going to start from the left and go over 50%. The transform attribute is going to have a value of a translate. So basically, it's going to perform going from the top and then over to the left. And then it's going to move this text basically in the middle of this web page. The font size is just basically, it sets the size of this text. And using a font family of sans serif, the letter spacing is basically the spacing between each letter, and it's set to 1 EM. And the transition, basically, whenever you refresh it, watch what happens when I refresh. See how it automatically jumps in from you, It takes about 0.3 seconds to do that effect. Now, when we come down here, we're going to have a text shadow attribute. Now, the parameters, just think about the text shadow. It has 4 parameters. So basically, the first parameter is associated with the horizontal positioning. The second is associated with the vertical positioning. The third parameter is associated with the blur radius. So in other words, when we have this blur effect that's down here on this shadow, that's what it's referring to. And the gray is basically, it's creating a gray shadow. And as you can see here, the 3D effect, it's got a gray shadow to it, and it expands. Now, the reason why we have multiple parameters here separated by commas is because it's creating this text shadow multiple times, and it's actually going up to 8 times this text shadow. So that's how this is being built out for us to give that 3D effect. So basically what this means is when it creates this text shadow, it's gonna a positive value is basically, it's gonna move the text, it's gonna create a shadow behind the original text, and it's gonna go over to the right 1 pixel. This next parameter, which is associated with the vertical, is it's gonna positive vertical. It's gonna move it down by 1 pixel. And then if you continue on through multiple parameters, again, the next layer of this shadow is gonna go over to the right 2 pixels and down 2 pixels. And so on and so forth. And that's why I keep on increasing it from 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8. And once we get down to the last grouping of this text shadow, basically what it's going to do, if you could see that blurring effect, which has a black shadow on it, it's from the original layer, the original print rendering of this text right here. It's going to move it down 5 pixels from the last shadow that was built, and it's going to down to the right, and then 13 pixels moves it down 13 pixels. So this is 5 pixels to the right and 13 pixels down. And this third parameter of this text shadow is creating that blur effect. It's the blur radius. So it's going to expand that blurring effect by 15 pixels. And the color of that blur radius or that shadow is going to be black. So now when we hover over it, this is the code that does the hovering portion of it. So it's going to format the 3D class, and it's going to transition it by 0.3 seconds. When you hover over it, it takes about 3 seconds to render it. And then the text shadow, again, we're building the text shadow. Now it's going to move it up. Instead of down to the right, it's going to move it up to the right, as you can see once I hover over it. It's the same effect. Now, again, a positive value in the first parameter, which is associated with the horizontal thing, it's going to move it over to the right by 1 pixel. And the minus value is associated with the vertical positioning of the shadow. It's going to move it up by 1 pixel, and so on and so forth. And that's how this text is created. So hopefully this gave you an idea how to build 3D text with CSS and HTML, and also add a hover effect to um, to your effect that you're trying to create. So again, thank you for stopping by. I'll see you on the next video, and remember to subscribe and click on the bell notification so you always get updated when a new video is created. And also please like, share, and comment. I appreciate your support. Thanks again. I'll see you on the next video. Bye now.